What's up, MetaNerdz? Today's video is all about the Manta Droid Subfighter. This droid was really unique, and it has one of the most interesting stories of any droid after the Clone Wars. Manufactured by Xi Char Engineering, this thing was the creation of our favorite religious zealot insectoid bugs, the Xi Char. This is the same species that brought us the Vulture Droid, so the Trade Federation commissioned them to build a droid fighter that could operate underwater. Now it's important to point out that the Xi Char get religious ecstasy out of building cool ships, but they also depend on each other for this kind of cult fervor. And the Trade Federation wanted to make sure that this project remained extra secret, and thus felt that they weren't able to work at their full potential, and that the Manta Droid Subfighter wasn't as great as it could have been. But the Trade Federation was satisfied, and the Quarren that would end up using it definitely thought it was great. Fresh out of the factory, this thing was 5 meters long, or 16 feet, slightly longer than a Vulture Droid, which is 3.5 meters, or 11.5 feet long. And it had a respectable underwater speed of 180 kilometers per hour, or 111 miles per hour. In terms of weapons, it had 2 laser cannons and 2 energy torpedo launchers, with a total capacity of 12 torpedoes on board. And all of this for just 22,000 credits, which is only 3,000 more than the Vulture Droid. Not bad considering that this is a highly specialized machine that was able to transform its shape even deep underwater. And despite the insane amount of pressure that must have been that deep under the Mon Cala oceans, we still see that these things are highly maneuverable, able to change direction in an instant. There was also a supersized version of the Manta Droid Subfighter. It looked similar, but it worked as a carrier craft, being able to release a whole bunch of B-1 battle droids that had been upgraded for underwater combat, along with their accompanying MRV-3 speeders. And so although Kit Fisto was able to cut in half the regular-sized Manta Droid Subfighters, the larger version was so big that, as you can see here, clone scuba troopers were able to fight along its surface. Now, we don't know too much about its history during the Clone Wars, except for this famous battle on Mon Cala, but we do know that this droid was very lucky, and many of them survived the Great Droid deactivation at the end of the Clone Wars. There were a bunch left on Mon Cala, and they ended up sticking together and forming a sort of community. But over time, they started to have problems with their activation servo motors. And that's when something really rare and pretty awesome happened. They actually formed a sort of symbiotic relationship with their old war buddies, the Quarren. These big droid subfighters would hunt down ocean predators, and they would bring back the catch and trade it to the Quarrens in exchange for repairs, upgrades, or whatever else they needed. Because remember, even though they look like vehicles, they are distinct droid entities, having their own integrated droid brain, and not relying on a control ship for orders. And the very last time we hear from these guys is 3 years before the Battle of Yavin, when the Duke of Serrano, Rodas Borgin, went to Mon Cala, captured a bunch of Manta Droid Subfighters, and modified them so that they were no longer droids, but would require pilots like a regular starfighter. Well, that's it for the Manta Droid Subfighter. If you liked it, go ahead and hit that like button, and if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe, because we're making videos like this every single day. If you want to study Star Wars even further, there's tons of great free stuff online like Wikipedia or other people on YouTube, but if you want some of the source material, go ahead and click on that link in our description below. It takes you to one book in particular, but be sure to browse around and see if there's anything you like. And any purchase that you make through that link shoots us back a small percentage, so that we can help this channel grow to the point that one day, we might be able to do this full time, which would be an absolute dream come true. But more important than all of that, remember,